Hi, Kathleen here. Jumping in real quick before this video version of the episode with Jenn to give a little technical disclaimer. I didn't realize in recording on Zoom that making it so that I couldn't see myself would make it so that the video just doesn't show me. So for most of the video, there's no Kathleen. That's why you see a picture of me in the upper right-hand corner while it's just Jenn. It's a placeholder. I show up at the very end of the video when we start talking about her book. And then the other thing is there's a discount code for you to buy her books. It's in the show notes. It's good until August 31st. And if you join her mailing list, this is all in the show notes, but I'm flagging it here. If you join her mailing list, you'll get the meditation that she and I talk a little bit at length about. It's the launch party meditation. So when you sign up to be in her world, you get some of those goodies. So buy her books. She's a genius. I hope you enjoy this episode. I love you. Hello, Freak Flag friends. It is your host, Kathleen. It is my extreme and extraordinary pleasure to be here today with Jenn Armbrust of Sister. She is one of my most favorite feminists ever. Jenn, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And Kathleen, we should tell everyone that I actually asked to be on your podcast because I'm such a fan.
We can tell everyone that in a minute. I would love to give them a tiny little bit of context for who you are. So I'm going to tell them your bio, and then we can tell them the story of our mutual fandom. How about that?
I love it.
Okay, so everybody listen up. Jenn Armbrust is the founder of Sister and a leader in the field of feminist entrepreneurship. She holds a degree in critical theory, which includes feminist theory, and has a background in entrepreneurship, which spans more than 2 decades in the sectors of art, business, and feminism. Since launching her signature Feminist Business School in 2015, she's taught over 500 students and authored 3 books: Proposals for the Feminine Economy, the Business Birthing Handbook, and a Feminist Flourishing Framework. Jenn, I know I already said it, but welcome to Freak Flag.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so do you want to start off and tell them like how this sort of came about?
I'll set us up and you can bring us home.
Okay.
Yes, so we're here today because of my most recent book, The Feminist Flourishing Framework, which, believe it or not, I wrote 2 years ago. And it has been the slowest rollout ever, but it's kind of got its own little personality and it's a slow roll. And so this past spring, it's summer now, I launched it as an ebook. It had only been available as limited edition print because it's got all these photos and fancy things where I was making it an art book, but then I was ready to share it with a larger audience, launched the ebook, and Kathleen came to my ebook launch party where I led the audience through one of the visualizations that I describe using in this book. This book is a theoretical autobiography about my own healing journey and feminist insights in that process. And a lot of it revolved around visualization. So Kathleen came and we did a visualization about having a launch party of your own. And so that's where I want to hand it off to Kathleen and she can share her experience.
So I will share my experience, and listeners or watchers, however you're engaging with this, I'm really excited to sort of plant the seed and let you know that Jenn is going to lead us through a tiny version of that visualization toward the end of this episode so you can get a taste of it also, because it is just so darn magical. So at her party, she did this, she led us through a visualization where we're at a launch party for our own thing. And I loved it. I loved it. It was amazing, and I was very struck by how much of an infinite and infinitely abundant resource our imagination is and can be for us and for our own uh habitation of our own power and selves and embodiment of the highest, yummiest, whatever that is. And so she led us through this meditation, and then it was finished. And then she said, does anyone want to share what your visualization was? And there were not a ton of us at this little party. And right after she said that, someone wrote in the chat that they were going to be taking off. And so I waved to them like on the camera, and Jenn thought I was raising my hand. And I was like, well, okay. So I shared my visualization. And I guess, Jenn, you just liked it so much. And you remarked on how lush and expansive it was when I told everyone, because I was like, I was wearing like 7 outfits, and Dolly Parton told me I'm a star, and like there was cake, and so then she emailed me later and asked if she could be on the podcast, and I was like, are you serious? Like, in my wildest dreams, I was hoping to have you on my podcast when I was much more famous in fantasy land 5 years from now or whatever. So is there anything
I
you want
mean,
to?
the visualization comes true, right?
Yeah, that was really fast.
Yeah, so we had talked about maybe we'll even be sharing a little bit of Kathleen's clip, but
Yes, we
it was
can.
just so abundant. And Kathleen really, like, for some people, visualization is hard, and I understand that, but Kathleen is not one of those people. And so, like, when she was just sharing, or you, I guess it's a you, she was sharing this experience, I just felt like I fell into it. And I was like, I think I kept saying, like, I want to be at your party. And so I am definitely out of practice at being on podcasts. So I was like, I want Kathleen to like lead me through this experience, to like come into her world. Obviously, you just like ooze creativity and joy, and it's so infectious. And so I felt like you understood the spirit of the launch party, and you were able to harness the power of this visualization and understood how it can be used to kind of like train your brain to prepare for good things, and not just our nervous systems and brains helping us survive through trying experiences, but also how we can use them to set ourselves up for joy, even if we can only access that joy in our imagination in the moment. Like the more we do that, the more it starts to move us closer to having that joy in our material world.
Yeah, and I so experienced that. And that's a thing I love so much about your book, Feminist Flourishing Framework. And listeners, I'm like Vanna Whiting, like the book, like here is the book. It's a beautiful, beautiful book on every level in terms of the energetic transmission, the wisdom transmission, the academic rigor, the autobiographical story that helps link theory and embodiment of theory of feminism. I just like, it's really one of my treasured possessions. And so I'm so excited that we're going to talk about this, and I really am so excited that you will lead us through this meditation that you and I are talking about toward the end of our conversation today. And so I want to kick us off with, I feel like I first have to say I basically want to talk about every single thing in this book, but because we don't have a lifetime and we're trying to keep this episode to an hour and I'm trying to be respectful of time, we're going to be focusing a lot on the body and embodiment aspects of the book and the information that you share in it. And I'm going to read a quote from page 73 that I love so much, and ask you to let's just start digging in there, if that's okay.
Yep.
So on page 73, you say, healing is a process of transforming a pattern from one of dis-ease to ease. To be healed does not mean you will have restored what was lost, repaired what was damaged, or recovered a normal of the past. It does not mean you will have defied death. It simply means you will have reestablished a pattern of ease where previously there was a pattern of dis-ease. one of my favorite sentences in that chunk is, it does not mean you will have defied death.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you to like expand on this, please, as it relates to, you talk a lot in this book about the lie of supremacy and unwinding that from our body, and how the lie of supremacy is sort of the essential dis-ease, which even in the way sort of Western culture relates to death, we could see, because there's an right, like we, if we want to defy death, there's still a weird disconnect there of the cycle of life and death that this all is. So I guess there's not really a question there. It's just, can you talk more about that? Where did that sentence come from? Tell us more.
Yeah, so this is a chapter, and the chapters in this book are quite small. This one's a page long, but it's called What is Illness? And so um, the best way I can describe what my experience of healing was like, it's like a pretty extreme trip. Like, I got so deep into healing, I wasn't able to run my business, I wasn't working, I was just healing. And I was mostly doing this thing called brain retraining, and which led me to all these nervous system regulation techniques, which then kind of just, I just was like so deep in wonderland, and I was really isolated. This was like the second year of the pandemic, and I was still unable to participate in society. So I was just like so deep in healing and really kind of on a different plane in a way. And I took this embryology like kind of workshop class with this really wonderful woman, Amy Matthews, who I'd taken a pretty profound yoga class with several
Mm.
years prior. And it was, so she's talking about embryonic development and cells, and I just sort of had this major breakthrough, definitely facilitated by that class of like, in some ways, all we are our patterns.
Mm.
And that means so many things. So an earlier part of this chapter is just like, we like, in a way, we're constituted by like our cellular patterns, our genetic patterns, our interpersonal patterns, our inherited patterns. Some of these patterns we choose, some of these are modeled for us, some of them we inherit, some of them we embody genetically. But this pattern, or this chapter, this idea of healing being that healing is sort of the opportunity that for us to change those patterns. And it doesn't mean you can just like decide that you want to do something differently. Sometimes we need a medicine to change our biological pattern. Sometimes we do need to make like behavioral choices over and over again to establish a new pattern. There's so many ways to kind of look at this idea of patterns, but that's kind of like where I ended up. Like when I was so deep in this, was just like, oh, we're just our patterns, because we can actually change our, like epigenetics. We can kind of we can even change our biological selves. There's
Mhm.
not, I kind of came away from it like we're not trapped by some sort of predetermined destiny. And so what is possible then? I was asking myself, what is possible when we focus on changing our patterns, and especially changing our patterns with the purpose of creating ease, of finding ease. And so, healing is, for me, this line, it doesn't mean you will have defied death. I was thinking, like, I think there can be peace, there can be ease, even when your physical body is shutting down, you're dying. I think healing is still available. And so it's resting it from this idea of, we have like mastered our illness, and we like, again, the supremacy thing. Healing is not like we've conquered it and we've defied it and we're going to live forever. Instead, it's like creating, finding, locating, cultivating ease in any situation. And so, like the last paragraph of that, I'll read. Um, Healing invites us to reimagine ourselves in present time. It invites us to create a meaningful and joyful life emergent from our current conditions and the truth of our bodies.
Mm.
So, the truth of our bodies is kind of the key there. It's not about defying or denying where we are with our health, with our, mental health, whatever, but looking for ways to access ease no matter what.
Mhm. I love that. And I want to bring it back to, or just, you know, bring in this thread of one thing. This whole episode is going to be me saying, this is something I really love about this book. Sure,
Kathleen,
or
I'm here for
whatever.
it.
Yeah. Like, it's because I'm such a fan of this work. And like, one thing I love so much about this, I love about your work from the beginning, which I somehow discovered probably on Instagram or social media after the first book came out, Proposals for the Feminine Economy. Um, and then I've just seen it iterate and evolve, is this deep connection that you make between feminism and the theory and the academic practice and critical thinking that is part of feminist thought and theory, and healing, like the way that you have put them together. The way I see it is that you are, this book, Feminist Flourishing, you it's like the fractal theory of, we can look out and see these larger systems of supremacy and domination over lots of different various identities or whatever, right? Like feminism, the idea that women are human too and should have equal rights in all ways and equal. And then the fractal of how it lands in the body and how it has landed in everyone's individual body, but all the different layers between the larger systems and the body politic and the body of the family and the body of a business, and then just a female body or a male body or a non-binary body or a body of flowers or the body of the work. Like, you've connected these so articulately. To me, I'm like, yes, this is correct, this is truth, this feminist flourishing framework is literally, could be a manual, which I don't know, were you trying to make a manual? Maybe, I think a little bit.
That's the framework part.
Right, that's the framework part. You're the academic, you're so smart about this stuff. Like, this is a literal manual for a person or a body of any kind at any level, the small, the individual to the collective, to unwind patterns of dis-ease from our bodies so that the larger bodies can also move into more harmonic resonances of ease and flourishing, which you said is a term from the flower realm, which I love because I love flowers. So
I
I
love
don't have a
flowers
question, but do you
too.
want to say stuff
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of my big gift of this book. What I was trying to kind of give to feminism is, I mean, I gave everything I had to this book. I threw a lot in it. There's a lot of theory packed in it, that I tried to make really accessible. But kind of the big thesis is feminism is a healing framework. And then I really go into like what needs healing or what needed healing in me. And kind of where I went with this based on where I went in my body and my own healing was like trying to root out what I call supremacist consciousness. You could call that patriarchal consciousness or white supremacist consciousness, these belief systems that we have embodied through socialization, through inheritance, through choice. But looking at how can I start to get some of these systems out of my consciousness, out of my body, out of my nervous system. And so the book is so much about the process of doing that, which sounds kind of crazy, but I felt like I had to write the book because I needed to make meaning of that experience, and I wanted to make feminist meaning of that experience. I wanted, like, I could think of it as like mechanics. I was like, I learned the mechanics of so many different healing modalities, and I was like, if these mechanics are working in our bodies, in our social body, our systems, whatever, we've got systems in our body, we've got systems in our economy, et cetera. Like, What can we learn about healing the systems of our body that we can use to heal these disease systems that are at scale? And that's even the like what I wrote in the book on the like about feminism as a healing framework. I wrote intersectional feminism is a healing framework. It's an interdisciplinary framework working at scale on healing our collective body. And so the way I could access the mechanics for what I could offer to this conversation was through healing my body. And then I wanted to take that wisdom and start to ask, like, how can I apply that to the larger body? And how can I share that in a way that maybe it's useful? Maybe there's something here that we can use together. So this is like my proposal. Not this time, not proposal for the feminine economy, proposal for feminist flourishing.
Right, which is an evolution of proposal for the feminist economy, right?
Yeah. Right. It's like I feel like the proposal for the feminine economy, which was my first book, which came out of a talk you can watch for free on the internet. Um, that was definitely like a manifesto. It was sort of this gendered critique of capitalism, of trying to ask if capitalism is an economy that values masculine traits, what could a feminine economy look like? And at this point, that talk is 11 years old. It led me to launch Feminist Business School. I put forth like 12 principles for prototyping a feminist business, which was like the first time I'd ever heard anyone put the words feminist and business together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really trying to, I guess, like launch something or like kind of push the conversation in a new direction. And then pretty quickly after that, things really happened quickly. And the idea of saying feminist business together seemed like no big deal. But at that time, it was kind of blasphemous. But it was so like that book and that talk were so lofty and idealistic. And then it's been this question over the past 11 years of how do we do it? And in fact, that's like a lot of my students are like, how do we do it? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a complicated question. And so this book is not so much about business, although it is about my own journey in business. It's not really like a how to business book,
Right.
but it is like, how do we embody our feminist commitments? How do we embody our values, our idealistic vision, our lofty vision of a different, greater, more inclusive, flourishing world? And so this is just in the trenches of that. And the body of work I'm working on now is about business. Now it's like, okay, here I kind of had to write this memoir about healing my body and put forth this idea that we can apply these principles to our social and economic bodies. And now I'm going back into business and asking, like, okay, how do I bring everything I learned into this project of like growing a business, being part of like a community of other feminists in business? Where can we take business, which is part of capitalism, which is part of this sort of supremacist consciousness, this alienation from the earth? How can we use, how can we bring healing in? How can we change our consciousness? How can we root out again these supremacist beliefs that we've embedded not just in our bodies but in our businesses? It's a really big project. I think anyone else would think it was too crazy or impossible to do, but I have nothing better to do with my life, so this is what we're up to.
I'm so glad this is what you're up to. And to me, it just makes it very clear like, this is your dharma. I think you're a genius. And the dot to dot connections that you're able to make of these things from the systems at scale, and then the way like you had to live it because you got sick, and you figured out the mechanisms of healing your body, and the way that like so much of the illnesses, which maybe we have to define illness and talk about illness as a portal, because that's genius. But the way that the illness, in the way it expressed in your body, and you discovered that at the root there was always some kind of lie of supremacist consciousness like you talk about. It's just incredibly articulate, and like I said, I just think it's correct. Like, you're giving, like you said, the framework for like where proposals for the feminine economy was like, this is the vision, this is the aspiration. Then there can be a funny thing that happens. I personally think in a human life where we say, this is the vision, this is the aspiration, and life goes, okay, is that what you want? And you say, yes, that's what I want. And then life says, okay, here's your path, you're going to walk it. And everything that is in conflict with that vision or aspiration is going to come up into your face so that you can say, do I want this or do I don't want this? And it's not a value judgment. It's not a like there's a right answer. It's just energy of life. And like, because you have lived it and because you have the background of academic study of theory, of critical theory and feminism, like, your stuff. You're not just like, um, you're an expert in this because you have that background and there was the vision, then you had to live it through your body. And that's the moment that we're in for all of us, I think, right? Like, we all have our own special dharma, genius, passion, medicine, background for the moment we're in, which on a very essential level, if you look at one tiny facet of this incredibly multifaceted gem, is about embodiment, being humans in bodies on the earth with all of the other beautiful, stunning life forms on this earth, in this cosmos, where there are these cycles, which are just natural cycles.
I totally agree. I think we're definitely entering the era of embodiment, and we're in this moment of friction between sort of what I call in the book, like I go for it. I just call it the disembodied parasites. Like the disembodied parasites have captured the state. And like what the best thing we can do is stay in our bodies, enjoy our bodies, like put our bodies together, support other bodies. Like at the end of this, I sort of make a call. I wrote this book 2 summers ago. So it was like leading up to the Trump's election, and then I wrote the final chapter right after he was elected, and I had to ask myself, like, what is the call to action of this book? So the final chapter really is like some directives, and one of them I say is like, what we need more than anything right now is a feminism of the flesh, like bodies showing up to support other bodies, potlucks, like being on the earth, planting gardens, providing protection, those of us who are able to provide protection to people who are targets of state violence, to provide support. I also said it's like a feminism that asks not what do I want, which I think feminism has been asking maybe the past decade or so, what do I want? But what do I have that I can use? I think we just have to go back to this resourcefulness, this like economy of what do I have that I can use, an economy of like contribution. And obviously not everybody's always in a place where they can contribute, but when we're plugged into an economy of resourcefulness, it's about circulating resources so that they're circulating to us when we need them. We're circulating to other people when we have them. But I think we're going to have to really ask ourselves, especially in this age of advanced technology, disembodied AI, there's like no body there at all. What have we lost even already? And what might we lose more as we become more technologically advanced? What have we lost with each other, with ourselves? And what does that mean to us for the world we want to create, the way we want to live in our bodies, how we want to treat ourselves and each other? It's kind of just all coming back to me now. This isn't so much in the book per se, but this is kind of like where I am now is like, we just need each other. Like if everything else falls apart, we can't fail each other. And that's so, it's kind of that weird adage of like the deeper you get into spirituality, kind of the dumber it gets in a way.
Yep.
Like it's like you just come back with these like aphorisms that you heard when you were like 10 years old of like, we need each other. But it's like, it kind of just comes back to that. Like, if our systems fail, if our government fails, are we going to fail each other? And I think what you were saying about people being asked to embody and to bring forth their genius is true. And I think like we kind of went through this like really hypercharged era, like the girl boss era that, kind of around the first Trump administration, where there was just a lot of economic growth, there was a lot of money, there was a lot of social media was kind of putting everything on steroids. And it was an exciting time, and a lot of amazing things happened. And a lot of people were able a lot of women and queer folks and people of color were able to kind of step into entrepreneurship and really bring their talents to the market. And then that has like really quickly crashed. But I think maybe the gift of that was people got to think of their gifts in a new way or really own them or really think like, oh, there's something here. There's something that I want to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think we're just going to have to really ask ourselves, like, I mean, first of all, how can we meet our material needs when there's just a lot less money and a lot more precarity? But then also, how can we not like disconnect from all of that personal power that we cultivated in that time, that belief in ourselves, that belief in what we had to give, that want to put it out there? Like, can we do that for less money? Can we look at other ways to support ourselves financially or like kind of just loosen up from the transactional relationship of selling our talents and like starting a small business? I feel like I'm getting a little wordy here, but I'll bring
Not
it
at
home.
all.
But
Yeah. You're heading
but yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. So I mean, I just was part of and had a front row seat to like this rise in female and feminist entrepreneurship. And now I see so many people really struggling in business. And I guess where I'm going with this sort of subconsciously is like, I don't want people to despair or give up or abandon everything they learned
Yeah.
from that era of really invigorating like social media led entrepreneurship, but instead start to think of it in a different way, maybe a slightly more mature way, a more expansive way, a more generous way, and a more humble way.
Yep.
That's where I'm
And
going with that.
yeah, that makes sense. And even we could say a more grounded way, right? A more you're saying don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Um and I want to go back to what you said about there, it seems there's an imperative to shift everything, including our feminism, to from what do I want to what do I have that I can use. And there's something about it that's really like pinging my brain and it's not completely clear yet. So I'm going to see if I can try to articulate it because there's a connection there to me with all of this. Of course, this is all connected. This is all the conversation we're having, but there's like a very clear connection there of um embodying one's own power and place as part of a collective, as like one cell in a larger human body, where like if we can be like super brute with our language, if I'm going to be really brute with my language, by which I mean it's like going to be a broad swath, it's not super refined, this is a generalism, but if you think of capitalism as being what do I want slash what can I get, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you have, oh, that piece of earth has oil that I want and I can make $1 trillion from it, and I'm going to look at it in basically in a vacuum in a
Mm-hmm.
completely not holistic way and say, I want money, there's a resource I take, right? So call it domination, call it capitalism, call it whatever. That's an energetic mechanism of this is
Mm-hmm.
what I want, I take it, the end. No consideration or even maybe consciousness about the larger effects or ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, what do I have that I can use to participate in this field? It's to me, in my body, it feels earth-based. It feels mycelial, or that's a word I like to use,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like community, it feels like a web of interconnection. And it feels like it comes from an abundant place of an orientation, which you don't have to say that someone who says that would have all of this background that I'm about to say, but this is how I see it. An orientation of like, everything is natural, everything has its proper place. The harmony of ease is that I have things inside me and at my fingertips and in the greater context of my life that I can use to participate in the harmonic symphony of what is happening here. And of course, me speaking as just Kathleen now, my view is that when I do that, it makes a more beautiful symphony.
Yeah. I mean, it's so beautiful. And when you say that, like, I feel choked up because we're so far away, or like
Mm.
I feel like I personally have strayed so far away at times, but I also think capitalism has kind of forced us to stray away from that.
Yes.
And I go into that in the book, and kind of this our disconnection from the land and the privatization of the land has
Yes.
forced us to participate in capitalism's
Yes.
logic and its systems, and it's forced us. We've been prevented from meeting our needs through the land, right? But when you say something like, what do I have that I can use? It's such a rich question. Or what do I have that sometimes I'll ask, like, what do I have that I can contribute?
Yeah.
There's so much there, right? Because when we stop and really look at that, it stops being about stuff, or it stops being about even about money in a way. And that's really what I'm where my brain is like we do need to participate in capitalism on a certain level,
Yes.
but how much, like how much can we create something else where we're really working together, where we're really harnessing what we have? We're so rich, it's like obscene. It's
Yeah.
obscene. Like even when I've had to get rid of my stuff several times because of this mold issue and housing instability. So many weird things happen in my life, and I've
Mm.
just had to like purge my belongings over and over. And even
Mm.
at that, I feel like I have amount of stuff that fits in an 8 by 10 storage unit. And even that, I have so much stuff that is fallow that
Yeah.
books that sit on a shelf that somebody could be reading. I have all these tools for my business, little like scanners,
Yeah.
cutters, things, whatever. It's like all of that. I basically have like a whole little world that I own all by myself that right now, even all of it's in storage. So
Right.
I mean, that's just one example, but when I step back, I'm like, we're so rich that we just don't even use all the stuff we have, and then we want more, and then some people don't have things they need. It's like this
Yes.
to me seems like an economic problem of us failing to understand how to build channels to circulate resources, the
Yes.
resources we have to the people who need them. Some of those resources are stuff, are material things, but like you're saying, some of it is just like our own like creativity, our capacity to solve problems, our
Yeah.
capacity to show up for one another, lend a hand, like lend a heart, let someone sleep on our couch. I don't know. There's so many ways to spin this, right? But it's just
Hmm.
not where we're focusing. And so a major thing in the book, like this refrain I come to over and over, is like fixing our feminist gaze on flourishing.
Yes.
And it's because first of all, there's this concept of the male gaze. I won't go into that. That's kind of a tangent, but that's a little bit what I'm flipping on is
Yeah.
like, what's a feminist gaze?
Yeah.
And maybe you could ask what's a capitalist gaze? Because I feel like we're all kind of like seduced by this capitalist gaze of like
Totally.
what we want to, how much money we want to make, what we want to possess, who we aren't that we wish we were, like whatever, all this stuff. But like if we fix our feminist gaze on flourishing, if that's like where we put our attention, what becomes a priority? What
Mm.
becomes available? What do we notice that we have that we're not using? What do we notice that we have that somebody else needs? What do we notice that we can contribute? I started asking myself this question in my business, not like, how can I make $10,000 a month, but how can
Mm.
I contribute $10,000 of value a month? Right? It's like, why was the idea like, how much money can I make instead of how much money can I contribute? How much value can I contribute?
I mean, right there, that's such a paradigm shift, right?
Mhm.
Like, instead of what do I want, what can I get, what do I have that I can give? Like, it's coming, it's lit to me, it's literally a paradigm shift of, again, standing on a ground of there is enough, there's more than enough. And I have my own tiny little share of what that is. So, what can I give? And we're not talking about martyrdom, not even in the slightest, right? We're not talking
Yeah.
about like martyrdom or self negation in a like neurotic, weird way. We're talking about everything being value agnostic and the whole field of everything from the worms to the mushrooms to the humans to the lions and the volcanoes and the fresh air, like it's all equally matters, and I have my little share of whatever it is. What can I give? And you know then maybe I will be taken care of. And
Yeah. I think it's like a
capitalism
spirit of,
has hypnotized, we've had to be hypnotized by these domination extraction paradigms because this is my belief here, of course, but you have to mm, you have to tell someone that life is hard and all you do is grind if you want them to come work at your factory for not enough money so that you can have a carriage house and gilded forks. You know what I mean? Like that kind of
yeah.
inequity requires for the people who are the working class to accept that, like, oh yeah, life is just supposed to be a grind and suck, and I'm never going to have enough money. Meanwhile, there's a whole other class of people who are like starting wars and
Mhm.
building AI with zero regard for anything except like their own insanity. That's my personal, and we don't have to get into all of that stuff,
Yeah.
but
Well, right. Well, that's the systemic quality is like, of course, there's like the consciousness and the I would say like the complacency, but also it's a systemic thing where once you're
exactly.
alienated from the earth, you don't have land, you can't grow food, whatever, you have no place to sleep. Like,
Yes,
there are many people that have no choice. You
exactly.
know, so
Exactly.
it's not even like I believe that, although there are a lot of people who I think have like really have been very seduced by capitalism and
Yes.
bootstrap and well, all of this businessman thing. Anyway, we're
Hustle
kind of
culture.
coded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even want to go into it, but
Yeah, no,
that
no.
exists for sure.
Yeah.
And it's very rooted in whiteness and masculinity too.
Yes.
But also I just want to do shout out to the number of people who have no choice. Like,
Yeah,
who
100%.
like have like we're in a system. We're in like a system that has wrested us away from our ability to meet our needs without capitalism.
Yes.
And yeah, but I even wrote in the book, like, despite all of that, like we can't capitulate. We can't just give up and resign ourselves. It's like I think there has to be this, again, the vision, like the loftiness, the ambition, and then this like gradual process of embodiment to orient towards something new. And so I end up sometimes in my classes, it seems like we end up in, I have students come in who are kind of locked into a very narrow discussion around capitalism, which is capitalism versus communism.
Mm,
And I'm actually interested in capitalism, like just finding our way out of capitalism into what's next. Like, I
right.
don't think the next thing is communism. I don't think it's exactly socialism. It's like, what if we just, this pattern thing, right? Like, what if we
Yes.
create new patterns
Yes.
rooted in like the world we want, the way that we're using resources, and like see where that leads us instead of needing some sort of top down economic vision, all of them written by men, like
Yes.
let's like iterate from below by starting
Yeah.
to build new economic behaviors. And by economic, again, I mean how we use our resources, our body's resources, the resources we possess. Like, let's start to change that and see what we learn, where we go.
I love that so much. And I had 25 thoughts all at once, and then they all went out of my head. And we're actually, I think we've been talking for like 45 minutes or
Oh my
something.
gosh.
So,
Who
like,
knew?
I feel like you and I'm like, we should just have a podcast ourselves. We'll just have our own podcast and we can always jam on all these things. But I feel like like, since we're going to give people a little taste of that yummy meditation, like what you're talking about, this is a super practical as well as magical way to tap into the infinite resource of our own imagination and
Yeah.
heart and soul, and tune in, fix our feminist gaze on flourishing, and start from the sometimes the one single only place we can start, which is inside our own selves.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that systems don't need to change and blah blah blah. Of course, obviously they do. You got to push at the thing from all levels, but a body politic is made of bodies. And if I have a bunch of blind spots and I'm out there trying to save the world, I'm going to bring the blind spots with me, and it's
Yeah.
going to get projected. So
Yeah, well, let's take it. That kind of makes sense. So let's set this up because I want to talk about cultivating a flourishing consciousness
yes,
because that
please,
is
we've
kind of a
got
big
to.
part of this book. So I was
Huge.
really sick. I don't even want to go into it because that'll end up taking up more time, but you can read about it in the book about my getting sick, getting healthy, getting sick, getting healthy again and again. And finally, I had been suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome for like 6 months and was unable to work and unable to really do anything. And but even during that time, I was still really trying to heal. I was like deep in communication with my doctor, going to multiple acupuncture appointments, different healers every week, and just not seeing any progress. This was sort of in like 2021, early 2022, so still kind of pandemic era,
Mhm.
and I was in despair. And I asked my doctor, I love my doctor, by the way. He's just like super. quirky, unconventional, like willing to try anything. Such a good fit for me, like very
Mm-hmm.
experimental. And but he's like a regular doctor in Providence system. Anyway, shout out Dr. Niles. And I was like, we got to try something radical. I was just like, I'm not getting anywhere. I don't want to double down on pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Like, we got to try something. And he was like, well, some people have luck with this brain retraining thing. And so there's a couple programs out there. And I'm not going to say it's for everyone. And I'm not even 100% a super fan of the one I did for just for some of the reasons of the program, not because
Mm.
of the principles of it. The principles I found very effective. So basically, I started doing it's kind of based on cognitive behavioral therapy and started doing these. They have like a whole protocol that you do where it's called like brain interruption. So when you catch your brain going, like, or being stuck or ruminating
Yeah.
or whatever, which kind of happens when you're in permanent freeze mode, your brain's just going all these unuseful places. You kind of like interrupt it, you stop it, you do these sort of gestures and say this script, and then you
Mm.
begin to like guide your brain through meditations. And the protocol I did was like you find somewhere in your brain a happy past memory,
Mm.
and you like bring that forth and you like say it out loud, and you as much as possible like get yourself in that experience again. And then you do one in the future where you're just purely using your imagination. And then those can even be fantastic. Like you could go someplace that doesn't even exist. And like, which I feel like you were such a pro at, Kathleen, in our party meditation. But anyway, so I was doing this. And at the beginning, I had to do it. They would say anytime you'd catch your brain going someplace or you'd catch your body having a reaction, like I was having chemical sensitivity. So like if I walked
Mm.
in the grocery store and Tide was bothering me, I had to like stop and do this thing right there. So you're basically like just sort of stopping your brain slash nervous system's automatic like pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And and at the beginning, they tell you to do it every time you're getting triggered. So I was doing it for multiple hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you kind of, once things get under control, you do it for an hour a day. So it is a very intensive program. It's for people who are in pretty bad shape, who are
Yeah.
pretty unfunctional. But I got incredible results. And so, like, my chronic fatigue syndrome went away within a week. And I had so many things I was allergic to, so many things I was like triggered by, couldn't eat, couldn't be around. Mold was a huge one. And I want to say I also was continuing to do acupuncture along with this. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't 100% this brain retraining that buoyed my health, but I think it was it was like the fundamental thing that shifted it. So
Yeah.
shifting from treating my body to healing my brain was the game changer. And that's kind of a little bit of my point also in this was like
Mm-hmm.
how powerful our nervous systems are, how powerful our brains are, and how much they dictate what's possible in our life and what's, I talk a lot about this supremacist consciousness, which really patterns on with nervous system activation and the way in which supremacist systems activate our nervous systems to keep us stuck in this fight or flight. At which point it's hard to imagine other possibilities,
Yes.
and at which point we become sicker over time.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so at the launch party, what I did was I guided people through one of these meditations that I, at this point, have done thousands of. And so, it's quite simple. It's something people can do at home. You don't have to be sick, or you don't have to be bedridden, um, and you don't need the program. Although I will say this program was quite affordable, which is the thing I liked about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was like $400 to go do the training. And then if you wanted to be part of these support groups, that was definitely more expensive. But even those were like, I felt like under $200 a month. So anyway, it was very accessible. So I do want to say that, because sometimes people get this story of like
Yeah.
healing being really accessible, but that's because so much of this program is just based on you doing the work
Uh-huh.
every day, and you have to do it for a minimum of 6 months. I did it for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
But like Kathleen's saying, you start to learn of like what an incredible resource your mind is and what's possible. And when we did the visualization together, I remember you were just saying like I had 7 outfits, Dolly Parton was there, like I had all my favorite things, my favorite people. And I remember saying the phrase like you're learning about the economy of your imagination, which is like it's free. It
Yep.
is free. And we don't need to live in our imaginations, but we can use our imaginations to reshape like our way of being in our body and the way then we move through the world. It gives us
Yeah.
something we can access anytime, no matter where we are, that then we show up in a different way. And then eventually I feel like as your kind of like internal ecosystems change, your external ecosystem really starts to change too, because you're just kind of operating from a totally different mindset, a different place. And as your nervous system relaxes, things don't seem as scary or threatening. And it's a place where then you can become a lot more visionary. You can take risks in a grounded way. Risks meaning like, not like crazy adrenalized risks, but the
Right.
kind of risk where it's like, oh, I'm going to be okay no matter what. I want to
Yep.
grow. I want to stretch in this way, whether that's like in your career, in your business, in your relationships. Suddenly it's like there's more room to try new things. And so in that respect, I think like that creativity needs to be part of this healing, not just like following protocols, but this creative aspect.
I remember feeling that way, and I won't belabor this because I know you are going to lead us in a short version of it. But like when we did it, I remember it was like, and maybe some of this is just me because I've always been a girl who loves to daydream, and my sort of my visionary fantastical daydream life has always just been part of who I am. However, and also, I'm turning 43 in 2 weeks. There's a way you live in the world and you can just get beat down by life and forget about that. And so being at your party and then doing that meditation and like experiencing the completely not earthly magical realm that I was in for my party, for my dream, for this creation that I'm like, currently secretly working on. Like it was this like punch in the face light bulb moment of how much is there, how much is there for me personally, and how much of my personal Kathleen power, and this is again just speaking for my own self, actually comes from that imagined place, and
Mm-hmm.
from which I'm like acting as if it's out there, but it's like all in here or like up there or wherever, from parts of my being that are like much different and from and bigger than this little human body. But it was such a I think that's the one of the magical invitations or possibilities of being in a human life here on earth is actually that like we all come bearing so much from so many places or times or lives or whatever, however you want to see it, and like we can actually bring it here. And even if the vision is um like so fantastical, whatever tiny morsel of it that we can bring through and materialize or embody or create, like whether it's like someone making this extremely magical book or their own book or a song or a cake or whatever, like there's something special about earth in that way. And it is it is like a cosmic, like it is a cosmic creative power that we all have access to. And I'm not saying someone has to do it like I do it, like, or someone has to do it like you do it. Like, I don't need to read your book and go like, oh shit, I need to go get a PhD and write a book about feminism. Like, no, I can just make records and songs and right. Like, it's just, there is something so potent about our imaginations and our
Yeah.
hearts,
Yeah.
and that meditation just like it like slammed me back into that tone and that vibration, and I was like, oh gosh, right, this girl, this.
And that's what we lose in survival mode. And
Exactly.
it's what we lose because our nervous systems actually switch to a different operating system that shuts that off.
Yeah, it's literally not
Yeah.
accessible when you're
Yeah.
in
And
fight,
like,
flight,
so
freeze, fawn.
yes, and capitalism also shuts that off. Capitalism also being part of nervous system activation. But I think you're hitting on something that I've really been thinking so much about. And like I've never struggled more in business than when I made a foolish choice to try to weed out the magic and weed out the woo and weed out like the imagination and the playfulness and
Mm-hmm.
the inexplainable, like
Yeah.
spirituality. Like there was a period where my business got so successful and that seemed no longer like, it's not that it wasn't really a conscious choice. It was just sort of like, oh, I'm at this level of business now. What am I
Right.
doing? Talking about the spirit of your business and communicating
Uh,
with the spirit of your business. And like that was really when my business started losing money. And this is
uh,
actually something I only realized in the past couple of weeks was like,
whoa.
oh, there's like a different economy that happens that is part of this magic, the spirituality that we need. And we
Yes.
need to be working kind of on this imaginary plane while we're also working on the physical plane
Yes.
because that's where things move quickly. That's where we're really generous. That's where we're really generative. And that's what people want to be around. It's like
Yes.
nobody wants to be around my business when it's this like brute capitalist model. Like people want to be
Mm.
around it when it's like fun, when it's weird, when it's queer, when it's like doing unconventional things that nobody else is doing,
Yeah.
right? Like that's kind of the space we all need to be a little bit more in, or at least checking in on every day and
Yeah.
bringing in like cultivating that economy, or we call it calling it the spiritual economy. It's like we need the spiritual economy happening at the same time that we're navigating this material economy of capitalism, because I think we're going to need to at some point kind of shift the balance. Right now, capitalism is dominant, and we all are sort of playing with the spiritual economy. But again, that's it's still this same idea of I was talking about earlier of what do I have that I can use? What can I contribute? That all to me seems part of the spiritual economy, or what I'm just calling spiritual
Yeah.
economy for right now, because it's kind of invisible, right? It's not based
Yes.
on transactional monetary exchange. It's something more intangible from an economic point of view, but very tangible from a lived point of view. So anyway, I kind of leave it at that. That's where I'm
Yeah.
heading is thinking like, especially when we think about what is feminist business, or that's a question I am asking myself all the time. I think we have to bring back the magic. We have to bring back the
Yeah.
creativity. We have to bring back the invisible exchanges of energy, creativity, resources, etc. Even as we learn some of the business basics that enable us to be useful in the economy we have, we need to not abandon all of the joy, all of the fun, all of the connection that the spirit or energy or art or whatever you want to call it brings.
Yeah. And I won't even get into it, but we could have a whole conversation about that. Um, I'm actually, I know I keep have we've been saying that you'll lead us all in a little meditation, but I'm wondering, do you want to do that, or does it just make sense to like have people give you their email and they can get the meditation that was in the party at the party um in their inboxes?
Yes, let's share the ones I recorded it, so we've got that.
Yep.
It's pretty fun, and maybe even we have a maybe some people maybe there's a special way to get the bonus of hearing Kathleen's version of the party because that's also on tape.
Yes, we have it.
Yes, let's figure out how to do that. We can share it on my website, or I have a website where you can become a member, Feminist Flourishing Club. I'm not sure. Let's figure it out, Kathleen, but let's share that one because it's all there.
Yes.
Again, so we'll kind of reiterate the purpose of that visualization. It was at the launch party for my book, but I wanted to give people a felt experience of what it would feel like to launch their thing into the world to like great reception. And what would it feel like to be at your own launch party? So you could even think of that as you pull it up or listen to it. Like, what are you wanting to put in the world? And you can kind of hone in on that even before you listen to this, and then allow your imagination to show you what it could look like, and let your body feel what it feels like if this was such a huge success, whatever you're putting into the world.
I love it. That's so wonderful. So, Jenn, what are things you have coming up that people should be aware of? How can they find you, etc., etc.? And everyone, the links will be in the show notes, of course. And obviously, I cannot encourage you strongly enough to go get in Jenn's world because she's a genius and she can tell you how to flourish.
I mean, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Feminist flourishing. That's my new thing. Yes. So, Feminist Flourishing Framework is available on my website. My company is Sister, and the website is sister.is, like letter I, letter S. Um, all of my books are available there. And I am also in the process of rebooting Feminist Business School, which has been kind of on a long hiatus, and I'm really excited about it. All these things we've been talking about today, with like contribution, thinking about how to cultivate these economies that are non-monetary while also building healthy businesses. That is what I'm embedding in this new curriculum. So it's not launched yet, but if you want to get on the wait list, go to sister.is. And I'm offering one-on-one consulting. And I've got a lot of experience in business, a lot. You can read all about that on my website, but I'm really loving working one-on-one with people. I only work with a small number of clients, either doing just one-on-one business development if you need executive coaching, or I can do creative brand strategy, et cetera. I've done it all. I've been in business a long time, and I love working one-on-one because I get to see really up close, like kind of where the sticking points are. I always learn
Mhm.
so much. It's exciting for me. So all
Mhm.
of that through Sister. I'm, yeah, that's the best place to find me, frankly, because I'm kind of transitioning from different social media platforms. So signing up for my mailing list is the best way to stay in the loop. And I do also have a website, feministflourishing.club, that has some resources related to the book.
Awesome. So, yes. And just to clarify, do you still have hard copies of Feminist Flourishing Framework? Or if someone is buying it, they're buying an e copy?
I have both. So maybe even while I speak, Kathleen, you can show people a little bit about what it looks like in the inside of the printed version because I'm pretty proud of this book. I've been a graphic designer for since I was 16 and I really gave it my all. And there's a ton of I took all the photos myself. I did all the design myself. So if you want to show the camera that, I'll talk about it just a little bit. But so I originally released this as a limited edition art book, only in a series of 1,000. And I figured if after 1,000 it was a hit, I would think of how to publish it on a larger scale, maybe even an updated and revised version. But this is real labor of love. And it's like, because of that, it's a bit expensive. I think of it as an art book. But the ebook is, I worked with a developer to do our best to capture the spirit of the um, printed book in the ebook version. So that is what just launched this spring, but you can get the ebook on my website also. And it's kind of meant to be an experience reading it, not just a story, but all the visuals are really, my hope is that it really evokes the feeling I was having, this deep connection I was developing with the earth while I was in social isolation. Thank you, Kathleen. That was
I'm really feeling
beautiful.
being like I like one thing. It's hard to, I'm not sure the camera quite picks it up, but like the outside cover of it, it's a little bit like shimmery, it's a little bit iridescent. And then there's like rainbow gradients going on. It really is an art book. And like I don't know if you can tell, but there's like rainbow gradient in the print here. And I was really excited when I saw this was coming out. I told my husband, I was like, this book is coming out. I want one of the limited edition copies. And I got copy 88, which makes me like really happy because
Ooh.
I love an 8 because I was born in August. So, and it's like a sideways infinity symbol. So, yeah, it really is an art book and it's so just like it feels, the paper's really heavy. I feel like we're on like QVC right now. Like the paper's heavy, there's a shimmer, do you see the rainbow gradient? Like truly though, it's like one of my most treasured books and I treasure books deeply. So get in Jenn's world, sign up for the mailing list, buy all the books. That's what I did. Buy all the posters, put them up. I have like a little card of the 12 principles of a feminist business, like in both of my offices. So get in Jenn's world, and it will make your life better. That's my opinion. So, Jenn, thank you so much. This has been like so yummy. I feel like it gave me some flourishing just this time with you.
Oh, I feel the same way, Kathleen. We went there and I feel
Yeah.
like we really got to some of the deep stuff. So thank you so much for having me. And just in general, thanks for all that encouragement and support. It means a lot to me and I feel it. It feels good.
Yay. Listeners, we love you so much and we'll see you slash hear you next time. Mwah.